And welcome to the Weekday Warriors of Wrestling for Friday, September 3rd, 2021. I'm Eric Clancy. I'm joined by Patrick Kelly. We are chatting All Out. We are chatting CM Punk. We are chatting. Those are the major things. Obviously, on a somber note, last night, Daphne passed away. Which is, a little rough considering the video that she had left moments before. So, I mean, honestly, we could sit here and talk about it but that'd be kind of speculating on someone's death. And honestly, I just think, if you have mental health issues, reach out. There's a lot of services out there. It's just a sad tragedy, and take care of one another out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only if you're feeling depressed or you're having whatever issues going on in your life that's getting you to that dark place, absolutely reach out and help. But on the other side of that, if you recognize that someone in your family or your group of friends is feeling that way, and this is something that I've fairly recently had to deal with some of my old high school buddies, but it's don't be afraid to reach out to them to see if you can help them in any way. So it's we all have to live in this world together, and it doesn't hurt to lend a helping hand.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I guess on a more lively note, that was a poor choice of words. I did not mean that. On a more uplifting note, shall we say, let's go into, All Out and AEW's big weekend that we've got coming up. We've got All Out on Sunday night. We've got if you're in Chicago, there's the Fan Fest this weekend. We've got they had a charity softball game. Obviously, Dynamite was in Chicago on Wednesday. Rampage will be in Chicago tonight. So big weekend for them. I thought this last Dynamite was a huge improvement over the previous weeks. I thought the one with Malachi Black and Lee Johnson as the ending was probably one of the weakest endings they've done since the Dark Order beatdown in December of 2019. This I thought was much better. It was a much stronger go home show. I liked the ending with the Elite just beating the shit out of each other. It's one of the first times they've done a really great heel getting heat spot.
And that steel cage looks pretty cool, by the way.
Yeah, so here's my issue with that. I think the match will be cool and good and everything, but I'm also hey, everybody kept trying to climb the cage. So what's to actually? I know Tony Khan's been there will be no interference, but literally, what's preventing the Good Brothers or someone from coming down and climbing the cage and going in it? I feel like a cage should just have a roof on it. I know that's the sell and everything, but if you really want to stop people from coming in, just do that.
That's part of where I'm going to kind of sort of blame WWF and WCW for this. Whenever they would have a steel cage match, the original sell for steel cage matches back in the 70s and the 80s was no interference. That was the major draw of those. And it was a great feud ender. But then you watch, sort of 90s wrestling, how a lot of steel cage matches went. And there was a ton of interference in those matches. So I feel like the gimmick of the steel cage keeping people from interfering has kind of been destroyed over the years.
Yeah. So, I mean, and from a kayfabe standpoint, it doesn't make a ton of sense because it works if they can't get in, right? If they can't climb up and go over, but we know they can do that, right? So right. Put a roof on it so they can't get in because if the story is one person has people coming down to help him, they should still come down and help him if there's a cage, right? The thing that should stop them should be a physical barrier, and they would at least try to get over it. So I don't know. I think there should, they should kind of retire the roofless cage if you're going to use this as a no interference thing, which I agree is the point of it. But they could just climb over the top. So
they need to put the cage over the entrance ramp. Just put just a cyclone fence over the friggin' entranceways so nobody can get through. No interference.
Yeah, that's an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's go to All Out. Let's go. This is a pretty stacked card, I would say. I know they're like, oh, it's our best show ever. And like, I think there is, I think when people say that, normally what they're meaning is like, this match is going to be good, and this match is going to be good, and this match is going to be good. And what I think people need to think about as far as presenting a show is, how has the storylines been developing up? Because there's a difference between having a bunch of great matches, but also building up your show storyline wise. And I mean, if you do both those things, then you're hitting on all cylinders. But I think from a storyline standpoint, it's like, I think they've done a lot here for the most part. Like, for instance, I don't think Paul White and QT Marshall is going to be the best match by any means, but they have put a lot of effort into the storytelling of it.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that's on here, I'm looking at the card right now, it's been built up for a while now. We're getting the final burn off to Jericho and MJF. We're getting the Bucks and Lucha Brothers in a cage, kind of like they've been feuding for like 2-3 years now. So you got CM Punk's first match. You got Omega facing the only guy that's really beat him in 2021. So there's a lot of stuff going on here storyline wise.
Yeah. So let's go through this. We'll start with the women's battle royal. The competitors you have here are Nyla Rose, Thunder Rosa, the Bunny, Big Swole, Julia Hart, Ty Conti, Diamante, Penelope Ford, Red Velvet, Hikaru Shida, Emi Sakura, Jade Cargill, Kiera Hogan, Abaddon, Layla Hirsch, Kylan King, Rebel, Jamie Hayter, Anna Jay, Riho, and a woman to be announced. That is a pretty good lineup for like AEW. It's like all their heavy hitters really there. Like, I mean, it's taken 2 years, but they've really, the women's division is in a much better shape than it was in 2019. You've got a decent amount of like names in there. You've got like, Thunder Rosa, Nyla Rose, Jade Cargill, Sheeta, and some favorites that are coming back like Riho, Anna Jay. You've got some unexpected names in there like Rebel and Julia Hart. Jamie Hayter, I think is a future superstar. So there's a lot of women in here. I mean, their battle royals are always pretty good and decently well booked. If I'm a betting man, looking at all these names, I think I would go with either Thunder Rosa is my gut, but I could also see Jade Cargill winning.
I'm going to go with, I'm kind of thinking along the lines of Britt retaining the women's title, which hopefully happens.
Yes, that's how I came there too.
Yeah, and it's like she's got to have like a really tough opponent moving forward, because so far they've kind of been giving her kind of the low level, I don't want to call them scrubs, but like they're lower end of the women's division, like the Red Velvets and the Chris Statlanders. And now this battle royal can be used to set up something bigger down the road. So I'm going to go with Thunder Rosa. And just to do like that big rematch building off of the hardcore match they had earlier in the year.
And they normally set that stuff up really well. Like, like Thunder Rosa won that match and she beat Britt, and all anyone could talk about the next little bit was Britt's performance, even though she lost. So like, that's like, to me, with the way they do long-term booking, like that's kind of the direction that they're going in. But yeah, I mean, I disagree that Chris Statlander is at the lower end of the pool. Same with Red Velvet, actually. Red Velvet was in that Shaq match, so I think they've got like decent size plans for her. Same with Statlander, but I do agree that Thunder Rosa would be a much like bigger match for Britt. Next, we've got a match which is to me is shocking that this match is on here. It's Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Kojima. Part of me is thinking maybe this is a storyline, and maybe like Moxley is like, hey, the top guys from Japan are ducking me, and I'm just getting like Nagata and Kojima and Tenzan and fucking whoever else comes over here. I'm not getting really the cream of the crop. I mean, I'm thinking at some point we may have a Moxley turn, just the way he talked about kind of referencing Punk in his promo where he was like, I was here from the beginning. I was the one who, came in with a leap of faith, and then other people are getting the attention now. So I'm hoping this is something, because on the surface, I have almost no interest in Moxley and Kojima.
Yeah, this feels like a placeholder for Moxley. I assume he's going to win this match, and this is just like, let's do an interpromotional match. And if it can like unscrew the bottle and get us some more interpromotional matches down the road, I think that would be really cool. But as a first one, it's just kind of like, they've been given like
NJPW has been given scrubs mostly, like Kojima, Nagata. Like, yes, I know like Nagata's like an all-time great. I know Kojima is a former IWGP champion, but that was a long time ago. They're not treated that way anymore. They basically wrestle the Young Lions until the Young Lions are ready to get good. So yeah, this is, I don't know, Moxley's kind of slumming it in this one. So yeah, we'll see. I think Moxley goes over because Moxley is a top star in both companies and Kojima is not. So there's that. All right. So next we got Paul White against QT Marshall. I feel like Paul White's going to win this because the whole story of the match is QT's been protected. He's run away from Paul White. He's always gotten one over on him. Paul White, as the Big Show, he's certainly not a day-to-day guy. He's not an everyday person, but you kind of want to give him like a feel-good moment. You want to get him out there because he is a legend. But excuse me, but he's just wrestling QT Marshall. So you're not like, he's not beating anyone, like good. It's like when Undertaker and Triple H would wrestle each other at WrestleMania. I'd be like, oh, cool. They're not hurting anyone else. They're just fighting each other. So like, great, do that all day. So I think,
and QT Marshall, I've said this before, he is so thoroughly uninteresting that if they're just going to feed him to Paul White like this, I'm like, all right, that's cool. And I kind of want to see Paul White wrestle again. Last year I went through and watched a lot of the old Nitros, and I kind of fell in love with the Giant all over again. So it was kind of like, yeah, I kind of want to see him just to see what he can do now in 2021. And I don't think we'll get much out of this. I expect kind of a squash actually, but it could be neat to see.
Yeah. My favorite comment that Vince made about Paul White was that WCW wasted the Giant and booked him horribly. And then Vince McMahon proceeded to book him even worse.
I'll be honest. Again, rewatching the old Nitros, they're kind of fresh in my mind. The biggest mistake they made with the Giant was turning him heel in '98.
Yeah, that was putting him with the NWO. Yes.
Yeah, that was the big mistake. Other than that, I thought they handled him pretty well.
Well, they gutted hey, guess what, everyone? We're going on a Nitro tangent. So probably fast forward like 10 minutes if you don't want to hear this. So in '98, when the NWO split happened, they gutted the WCW team, because previously before that you had a decent amount of top guys in WCW. You had Luger, Sting, the Steiners, the Giant,
the Horsemen, Ric Flair, and all those.
The Horsemen. Goldberg was becoming a big deal for around that point.
Did you say DDP?
DDP. Booker T was kind of getting up there. So you had like a lot of like major stars on the WCW side that you could conceivably like put in that spot. And then, oh, look, Scott Steiner turns heel and leaves, and WCW is left with the shitty Steiner brother, or the older and less cool one, let's say. Luger goes to the Wolfpack. Sting goes to the Wolfpack. The Giant goes to Hollywood. So suddenly you're just left with Goldberg, DDP, and kind of Booker T. And it's like they just gutted them, and it was just too much. Like really, you could have had. You probably, I'm sure there were so many politics that went into who went to what side and everything, but I can excuse the Papa Pump thing. I think that's fine, but Luger and Sting did not need to go on that side.
No, Stevie Ray was another one. I felt like, why are we breaking? I get Booker was going singles and stuff, but it was kind of like, Harlem Heat was such a great team that even if they kind of split ways a little bit, that was something you could always revisit at various points. And I don't know. It just,
and I know the Wolfpack was huge. Excuse me. I know the Wolfpack was huge, but I feel like you can accomplish that without bringing Luger and Sting there. So, I feel like you do Nash, Hall, Savage, Conan, and like you have Steiner in there. You have Scott Steiner on that team, and then that's the Wolfpack, and it's like the same amount of people. WCW doesn't lose anything, and the only person, and then Hollywood loses Hall and Steiner, I guess, but they had like 7 million other people. I understand Hogan wanted another guy that was cool, so his side wouldn't look like the worst, but they're also fucking heels, so like deal with it.
Yeah, really, all Hollywood needed was Hogan and his entourage, because Hogan was really the heart and soul of the Hollywood faction.
And like nobody else even talked or anything. Like it was just like him and Bischoff talked and everybody else stood there. So it's like, why do you need Hall and Steiner in there who can both work the mic? Like put them on the other team where like they just shout their catchphrases 800 times. So
yeah, Hennig was another one. He started off on the Wolfpack and then they moved him back.
Yeah, I heard there were initial plans to have Hennig and Steiner on the Wolfpack, and then they were like, oh no, we're not going to do that. Yeah, it was, and it like, and then Savage got injured, so there was just 4 of them after a while.
Yeah, Savage got hurt, then Sting got hurt in the fall, and by the time Starrcade rolled around, it was Nash, like Conan and I think Luger was still there, but
Luger was there, but he was like peripheral and wasn't doing much.
No. Yeah, Luger had already peaked by that point, because the peak of Lex Luger was summer of '97 when he beat Hogan for the title.
Yeah, and he's still over going into '98 and like with the Wolfpack, but like you can see there's like less and less for him to do.
Oh, absolutely.
So that was our WCW interlude. Okay, so we've then got Jericho and MJF. This is an interesting one to me. They've told the story, and now here's a storyline that's been going on since like October of last year, like really, which is like, geez, when was the last time WWE did that? That wasn't a Brock Lesnar storyline. So my gut says Jericho wins. And the reason I say that is because AEW generally sticks to their stipulations. And like they don't go back on that because they don't want the heat on the company. So my gut says Jericho wins. And I think it can be a situation where MJF, I'm normally always like, don't have MJF lose if it's completely necessary, but he's beaten Jericho like 10 million times. So like, I don't think he's going to lose much by losing one match to him after he's beat him like clean many times actually, and like cheating once, and like I think it's fine. But then you wonder, like, are they going to have Jericho like do commentary? But like, I wonder if Jericho does want to retire. Now I know he's going on tour with Fozzy, so I think he's going to take some time off after this match. So that leads me to believe that MJF wins. But then they would have to bring Jericho back in some other way, and I don't feel like they're going to want to do that. So this is very like confusing and interesting for me, especially since from what I've understood, Jericho has like a year and a half, according to Meltzer, has a year and a half left on his contract. So unless they're just going to have him be a commentator, and like Jericho's decided he's done, and maybe he's like 51 almost. This is an interesting match to predict.
Yeah, it is. My brain kind of says Jericho goes over because it's just the typical wrestling thing. The heel is on top. And then when you get to the match that means the most, the babyface ultimately wins. And that's kind of where my brain is going. But my gut kind of goes, AEW's roster has expanded greatly in just the last short while. We've got CM Punk. Daniel Bryan is all but confirmed on the way. Punk basically confirmed that Bryan's coming. There's talks that Adam Cole's going to show up and Bray Wyatt's going to show up. They've got a huge roster right now, a bunch of stars, former WWE guys. I wonder if the need for Chris Jericho isn't as strong as it was when AEW first started, where they put the belt on him because he was the biggest name that they had. And that's kind of, I don't want to say that's no longer the case, but Jericho is getting up there in age. He's not in the best shape. Anybody who saw that match he had with Juventud Guerrera could definitely second that. it makes me think maybe Jericho doesn't have to be out there killing himself. And I almost feel like the 5 Labors of Jericho storyline that they did was kind of like a last bucket list thing of Jericho. You wanted to have one more match with Hoovy. You wanted to have a hardcore bloodbath with Nick Gage. And it's just him kind of going through everything he wanted to do and then ultimately kind of step away, at least for a short time. So there's a part of me that thinks that MJF might win this. So I'll go ahead and predict him just to kind of shake things up a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I wonder if Jericho like said like, hey, this is the guy I want to like totally like put over. I mean, there's not much Jericho has left to do in this industry, you know? So like, if he wants to really help make a guy like MJF, like, I think that's a great way to give back. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. Like they've had good matches before, so I'm like interested in this one. All right, next we have the TNT Championship. Miro is defending against Eddie Kingston. I've kind of wanted this for a while. They have been teasing it for a little while. I just love the idea of unstoppable brute Miro against unhinged street thug Eddie Kingston. It's funny because the TNT title, like I know Darby was the champion, but it's almost like the Haas title. It's almost like we're just gonna throw hands. And I mean, even with Darby, you know, it's like this is the uncontrolled title, not the hardcore title, but just like the wallop the shit out of each other title. And
it kind of reminds me of what the never open weight title was in New Japan in like the early times when it was like Makabe and Ishii having those stiff fests with each other. It's kind of morphing into that.
Yeah. The never open weight title that everyone's held forever and it's like useless. And there's too many titles in New Japan.
Yes.
It's funny because there's so many like good matches. Like Suzuki had a bunch of good matches. Goto did. Shibata was the champion for a while. He had some good matches. But it's always like, fuck, do you need another one of these things? Like, Jesus Christ. The never division was supposed to be its like own thing with its own shows. So once that stopped happening, you should probably get rid of it. It's weird. It'd be like if WWE still had the ECW championship right now.
Hey, they might. I don't know. WWE's got like 30 belts, so who knows?
They do. At least they have like 5 brands. So, you know.
Yeah, there's at least that. Although NXT's getting a rebrand. Have you seen that new logo? I
have. I don't think it's good, and I'm going to ask any of the art directors or graphic designers I work with if they think it's good. I'm sure they don't. It'll be interesting to see, you know, what happens there because, you know, they're not developing stars.
No.
Excuse me. That is true, but I feel like NXT developed a lot of stars and then they just weren't pulled through on the main roster. Like, I feel like they blew it like 4 times with Bray Wyatt. Mm-hmm. They blew it with, let me think here. Trying to think of the guys that have.
Oh, Tyler Breeze is a big one for me.
Yep, Tyler Breeze.
I remember watching that first takeover and thinking, dude, and this is still with the mindset that NXT is a proving ground, training ground to get people ready for the main roster. I looked at that show and I said, Tyler Breeze is the most TV ready guy on that show. And they squandered him.
Well, I mean, you know why? I mean, they like his size. They didn't think he'd be a top guy. I'm always like amazed. I always thought Eddie Kingston, I'm sorry, not Eddie Kingston, Sami Zayn would be like a top tier baby face for like millennials. Like, I thought he was a guy where it's just like, you know, he's kind of like a real good guy in an age of like cynicism where like, you know, John Cena is full of shit and stuff like that. And he never like kind of became that. They never utilized him in that way. I thought that was a miss. I thought
he should have been the Tommy Dreamer of Raw.
Yeah. And I thought they blew it with Strowman. I mean, you can make a case Strowman like blew it himself, but I don't know. There's so many guys that I mean, obviously Adam Cole left, so they didn't develop him, but they're not like, you know, like when you look at their homegrown stars, who comes to mind? It's Roman, it's Charlotte, it's they blew it with Aleister Black. That's another one. who's another one that they've kind of built up from nothing? Bianca Belair is one. Everybody else like kind of came from somewhere else. I mean, you could say Sasha Banks, I guess.
Most of the women, Bailey too.
Yeah, Bailey. Yeah. Yeah. So they've actually done a really good job with the women. I will say that they've made a lot more stars on the women's side. The other side, it's kind of been like, as far as like from the ground up from their company, not like, oh, Seth Rollins or like, or like Samoa or someone like that you like were successful elsewhere and they pulled them from like Ring of Honor or wherever. But it's like Roman and I mean, I don't Corbin kind of, but not really. I mean those are the big ones, right?
Yeah, well, Corbin's the one they've tried to shove down everybody's throat, trying to convince us like he's the star, and nobody bought into it.
Yeah, yes, they have.
He beat Kurt Angle in his last match.
That was weird. I don't know, whatever. All right, so Young Bucks, Lucha Brothers in the cage. I feel like the Bucks are going to win this. Like maybe this is just me like reading too much into this. I've always thought the Bucks put over Proud and Powerful at Grand Slam. I thought that was the end game for the Bucks. You get a heel Bucks against a face Proud and Powerful in New York. I thought that was the way to do it. People seem to really think that the Lucha Brothers are going to win this. I do not.
I don't see it. No, I think honestly, I kind of want the Lucha Brothers to split up and go singles, even though yes, the roster is like really crowded on the single side of things. I think there's more to be done with Pentagon and Phoenix as single stars, especially Pentagon.
Yeah.
So personally, I would give it to the Bucks and then use it to do like a Pentagon Phoenix feud and work with that and finally get some singles matches out of these guys.
Yeah. Well, the issue that they don't invest in them as much as they do other people, and they don't invest in them a bunch as a team either, is because a lot of the luchadors have only been signing 1-year contracts. And a lot of that's for like their flexibility. But if you're Tony Khan or you're Vince McMahon or you're whoever, it's difficult to plan long-term storylines around people that you don't know are going to be there in 2 years. So like they know the Bucks are going to be there. They know that Miro is going to be there, Punk's going to be there, Moxley's going to be there. They don't know if Pentagon's going to be there. He could be, he could decide to go back to AAA or CML or go to Japan or even WWE. So it's difficult to do that if they're not signing these, if they're not like locked up for an extended period of time.
Absolutely, yeah, and I wasn't even aware of that, but yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, a lot of the luchadors have done that, and I know they do that in Japan a lot. Which thankfully I think New Japan like has stopped doing that because it was fucking weird when they were like, let's just sign everybody for 1 year, and then whoever gets over will just sign with WWE, and we'll have to start over again. I'm like, you can just sign these guys to 3-year deals, and then you won't get rated every single year. But yeah. So, okay, next we've got Britt Baker and Chris Statlander. This should be good, I think. But I think Britt's totally going over. I don't think they're gonna. I don't think.
Yeah, there's. I just don't see Statlander winning this. It's got to be Britt. Yeah. She's the hot hand. You run with the hot hand.
And then on Wikipedia, the next match I think is going to be the main event. They have it listed here as the semi. Is Punk and Allen.
I think it should close too.
I don't think they're going to allow it not to close. I think that everybody will leave after that match. So I 100% think it should close. You've got to know your audience, and you've got to know he's going to be the most over guy there. So like, I think 100% Punk is going to win because I feel like that would be the dumbest thing to do to have them lose. But I think the goal is to make Darby look like he can hang and have a big deal match, and and just like Punk wins in Chicago in his first match back, and goes out. Maybe Daniel Bryan's music hits at the end. I don't know. I mean I think that's how you close the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Punk's not losing his first match back. If they did, it would be the biggest. Take the the anger that people had when Sting lost at WrestleMania to Triple H, and then times that by like 1,000,000. And there's no way Punk's losing this match. It would be criminal to book him to lose his first match.
Yep. And the quote unquote main event here that I don't think will be the main event will be,
Can't be.
Kenny Omega taking on Christian Cage for the World Championship. I think, I'm 100% sure Kenny is going to win this. I think Kenny should win this. We all know the guy that's got to beat Kenny at the end. My hope is that he shows up here. I don't know if they're going to do that. I do think the end game is going to be maybe Full Gear. It's funny. You and I talked about this like over the summer, where I'm like, they're building up. Actually, like before the summer in like May, we're like, they're building up Hangman, but like they're probably going to hold it off, for a longer period of time. And then they did that angle with Fyter Fest, and I understand why they did it. And I think is actually the right call. It's like you just, Al Snow said this when we interviewed him years ago, where he's like, you want to make people want something and then beg for it, then crawl over glass for it. Then you finally give it to them. Then you give them a new thing. And you want people to like really want Hangman to get this title. And we're getting there with it. It's been such a long time. I think Full Gear is probably the time to do it, because I don't think you can push it off any longer. People got really pissed off after that Fyter Fest thing where he lost, and they're like, "Oh God!" And like, I understand it's like the second act. It's the hero, fails, and he's got to get back up one more time. But like, I don't think you can hold it out longer, especially with the guys you have waiting in the wings. Assuming if you're going to eventually have a big Hangman and MJF feud, like let's say around next summer for the title or something, and those are like your young studs, and eventually guys like Punk and Bryan are going to have to get involved in there. You don't want to do it too early, but eventually they're going to have to get involved. So like you have to factor that in. So Hangman's got to have some time for this. So I think Kenny goes over here, and I think whether we see him now or on the Dynamites coming up, I think Hangman's coming soon.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting. A lot of guys kind of got left off this show when you look at there's the 10-man tag that's on the pre-show, but it's like, man, there's a lot of ex-WWE guys on the show. I wonder if because you got Big Show in there, you got Punk, obviously, you've got Christian in the world title spot, and guys like Orange Cassidy and Jungle Boy are on the pre-show, and guys like Hangman Page are left off entirely. I don't know if that's like, if that becomes a habit, that's going to be a problem, but I think they have a plan for at least Hangman to ultimately get to that main event spot. So it's fine for now.
Yeah. So that's all out. It should be a good show. I think it'll be nice to see a pay-per-view that's not in Daly's place, even though Double or Nothing was welcome with the fans and stuff. It'll be nice to see a pay-per-view in a place that's full of people and also not Daly's place. I have a good feeling about, I have a good feeling that we're not going to have a lockdown anytime soon, or we're not going to have people not being allowed to go into arenas, even with Delta. I think that'll be the case. I just don't think it's going to happen. So I don't think they need to really worry about that. But I think they're, I'm going to both the Newark show and the Queen show. The Queen show has a vaccine mandate, which I think is fantastic. So, hopefully more places take that up so people can kind of relax their masks a little bit and cheer, because I'm going to be a little nervous in the Newark one with my mask up. But yeah, so.
All right. Yeah. Sounds great.
Yeah. What else we got?
I think we got through everything. All Out was kind of the main reason for doing the show. We wanted to get a preview out.
Yes, we did.
I will say this. I did see both NWA pay-per-views last week.
There were two NWA pay-per-views?
Yeah, there was Empower, which was the all-women's show, and then they did the 73rd anniversary show.
Oh.
Yeah, the Empower show was weird because it was like the women, they kept putting over how big of a deal it was that it was an all-women show and everything, and all the women were crying after every single match. It was just it was weird. Like, it was very weird. I don't want to say it was like fake or anything, but it felt kind of forced, that they were trying to force this emotion onto the show. And I'm like, I like heels and faces and stories. Could you give me heels and faces and
I know.
stories?
I hated that. They did that in the Sasha Banks Bianca Belair match. And it's just like, you know, I get it, but like you didn't see Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley do that, you know? And it's just like, to me, it's like, and people will be like, oh, you don't want emotion in pro wrestling. I do. I want it like within the context of the story. And like, to me, it's just like, I don't know. It comes off as like charity and not like I know all these girls are like working hard and doing a great job and they deserve it, but I'm like, why are you crying? And they're like, play your character. Like, are you not able to do that? Like, you know, I don't know. I'm against that. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good for them. I think people see that and be like, oh, well, the women cry like they're not as serious as the men. I think it turns people off. I don't think it's like right or wrong, but I do think it like cheapens the product a little bit, especially if it's like happening all the time. And it's just like, you know, just put on an amazing show, you know, and like just do this and just make this thing a thing that happens all the time. So it doesn't feel so special. I get that it is special, but like after every match, it's just like, like, I don't know. You didn't see what happened at Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks in other world championship matches. But
No,
like,
and my whole thing is like when I'm watching the thing, very much like if I was watching a movie or a TV show or anything, it's like I know what I'm watching is fake, but while I'm watching it, I want to accept that it's real. And it's hard to do that when they're doing curtain calls and they're hugging each other after every match and they're crying, and it's just completely destroys the illusion for me. And that's the part that kind of rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah. So how was the 73rd anniversary show?
Mostly pretty good. Ric Flair rambled like a lunatic. I don't know if that clip's been floating around the internet. I don't know if you saw it, but when he came out and gave his speech, which seeing Ric Flair in an NWA show feels right given his history, but at the same time, it was like he was just rambling like a lunatic. And it's like, they just gave him half an hour and let him say whatever he wanted. Okay, that's fine. But can
you explain to me why Trevor Murdoch beat Nick Aldis in the main event?
I think the fact that it was his hometown had a lot to do with it because his family was there and everything. They think they were just going for this really good feel-good moment. And it came off well on the show. The match itself was really, really good. It's just, I'm thinking long-term here. It's just, all this is just a better long-term option for champions. So maybe if they Hogan and Luger this shit and just have Nick Aldis beat him like 2 weeks from now, it might be okay. But
yeah.
I don't see Trevor Murdoch as somebody that should be the champion 6-7 months from now.
Yeah. I mean, they've got like, I think Camille's a great champion. I think Nick Aldis is a great champion.
I think he's the best option for the NWA when you look at their roster.
He seems to really like the NWA, you know. Also, he's fucking 34. Can you like, he's been doing this for so long. Like he's like, it's nuts how you know, long he's been around.
He was in TNA in like 2008. And that's crazy. And he's only
like
34.
18 or something then.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah. So.
Good for him. He's developed into a guy that like, he's a perfect figurehead for that company, that organization. Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah.
And he married Mickie James, even more points.
There we go. All right. I think we're good here. Anything else?
No, I think I'm good. I forgot to do it last time, so we didn't get any questions. But if you want to submit questions for a Q&A segment on a future video, send your questions to weekdaywarriors2020@gmail.com. It will be listed in the description down below.
All right. Well, everybody, I hope you guys enjoy the All Out show this weekend. We will hopefully recap it next week. But for Mr. Eric Clancy, which is me, and my friend Mr. Patrick Kelly, we are
signing off.